Welcome to Dementia Friendly Prince George's County, Maryland Northern Sector webinar series for caregivers. Today's topic is Healthy Living for Your Brain and Body by Michael Watson, sponsored by Prince George's County Government and Department of Family Services.
For your brain and body. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we want you to learn from this evening's program is basically a few things. We want to identify how certain behaviors affect our brains and our bodies. And then we're going to list strategies in these key areas and these decision makings for these areas: sleep, smoking, mental health, physical activity, a balanced nutrition, cognitive engagement, and social engagement. So let's talk about how this works with the brain. So the brain is the control center of our body. Over 100 billion nerve cells or neurons create these branching networks. So anywhere from blinking our eyes to moving our arms and our hands and feet is controlled and dictated from the brain. Those signals then travel throughout the brain. That forms our thoughts, memories, and feelings, those emotions. And then what we know about Alzheimer's disease, as we covered in previous sessions, is that it destroys the brain cells. So we say this a lot in a lot of our other presentations and just in general. The heart and the brain are interconnected. And what we say is what's good for the heart is also what's good for the brain. So what you do to protect your heart can also help your brain to continue to operate at its best. The brain needs blood flow and oxygen, and the brain depends on oxygen and adequate blood flow to work well. About 20 to 25% of the blood beats from every heartbeat. So it's a really integral part of our body, and that connection between them is integral for us living well. So a quick true and false question, as we discussed before, Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging. So we know that Alzheimer's is a progressive and fatal brain disease. Symptoms usually develop slowly over time, and it's not a part of a normal part of aging. So let's move ahead. So when we talk about Alzheimer's and that connection to dementia, Alzheimer's and other dementias are not normal parts of aging. Dementia is a general term that describes problems with thinking, memory, and will severe with daily lives, daily activities. Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia. There is no cure currently for Alzheimer's, but there are drug and non-drug options on the market that do help with the symptoms, and it does have the ability to slow down the progression. And what we'll talk about with today's presentation is that healthy behaviors, as those categories, as I listed before, may lower the risk of dementia. So let's get into that deeper. So when we break down the story of your health, my health, people with Alzheimer's and dementia, people without it, people with any pre-existing condition, it usually falls into one of these three categories. We always talk about genes and family history. We talk about the environment and where we live and the lifestyle. And so those healthy habits, whether we're forming them early or doing them late, are super beneficial to your brain and your body. So when we talk about having those in really direct conversation with our healthcare providers, things to look for and look out for as we age. We're talking about your blood pressure, we're talking about your blood sugar, your weight, and your BMI, and then the cholesterol. So we'll do a little deeper dive of that later on in the presentation. So this is what we know that the science tells us. There are many factors that increase the risk of heart disease and stroke, and will also increase the risk of cognitive decline and dementia. So we're talking about things that are prevalent within the African American community: hypertension, diabetes, midlife obesity. So there's something called good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. Good cholesterol is good for the heart. And as I said before, what's good for the heart is what's good for the brain. So a quick true or false question again: it's never too late or too early to incorporate healthy habits. And that is true. We always have these conversations with folks, is that people of all ages, whether you're my age in the 30s or younger than me in your 20s, you start incorporating these good eating habits, these healthy habits, working out, not having a sedentary lifestyle, remaining active and being mindful of what you eat and eating the things that we like, the bad things, the cookies, the cakes, in moderation. You can see yourself prolonging and having an overall healthy life. So we're going to talk about all these tips before, but let's just kind of recover them before we get into them. Talking about getting quality sleep, being smoke-free, Taking care of your mental health, and as we've seen with COVID and just in general over the last 5, 10 years, how the perceptions of mental health have changed within all communities, but especially communities of color. You always want to get moving. You want to make sure you're eating healthy, you want to challenge yourself, and you want to stay connected. So let's talk about getting sleep. I myself can function off of 6 hours. I know the recommended is 8. Some people can do a little more, a little less, depending on how they are. But what we know to be true is that sleep is essential for overall health and general well being. So when we look at the science, we know that sleep or lack of sleep will impact the overall health. It affects our ability to maintain healthy blood sugars and blood pressures. And inadequate sleep can cause problems with memory and thinking. So the less sleep you get, you're starting to see, oh, I forgot this or I don't remember this. So getting sleep is essential for just having an overall better quality of life. So what are we talking about when we're talking about getting quality sleep? What are those tips? What are the things we want to be aware of? What kind of environment do I need to sleep? So I sleep, I used to grow up in a city. Now I got a house with my wife and my daughter, and I live in suburbia. So the sounds that I was used to going to sleep in one instance is completely changed in going in the other instance, right? So it's very quiet. So for me, I can function with a white noise machine or a little bit of sound, right? Where for her, she needs something to be completely quiet. So everybody's different. Then we talk about those changes that might help create more peaceful sleep. Turning off electronics, creating the peaceful environment, maybe having the temperature set to a certain temperature on the thermostat. And then how can we minimize disruption? So that means turning off your TV or any electronics, right? We tell our daughter about 15 minutes, 30 minutes before bed, turn everything off. So your brain kind of slows down and it's mentally preparing for sleep. But if you're transition from watching a television show and they think you're going to fall asleep, usually it doesn't happen. It takes an additional maybe 15 to 30 minutes before you actually get there. So let's talk about some quick tips for quality sleep. Control the room temperature or the amount of light of what you prefer, right? Some people like it cold, some people like it hot. So figure out what that sweet spot is for you to get you kind of settled and get your body comfortable and prepared for sleep. Make sure you turn off those screens before bedtime and help wind down to sleep. 15 to 30 minutes before bed is usually the suggested rate because, again, it gets your mind to kind of turn off and slowly transition into sleep. And if there's any significant problems or if you're having significant problems overall with general sleep or just getting to sleep, insomnia, anything like that, you want to make sure you talk to your primary care physician or doctor if those problems persist and are consistent. So something that we've heard about for a long time is being smoke-free. Smoking has a direct impact on the health of your brain, right? So let's break that down further. So this is what the science tells us. Studies have found that smoking increases the risk of cognitive decline and may increase the risk of dementia because of all those chemicals in cigarettes getting in your system. It can mess with and alter brain waves, neurons, the cells, all of that. And we know that it has a direct link to cancer and lung cancer. So imagine what all those different chemicals are doing to your brain. Quitting smoking may reduce a person's chance of developing cognitive decline back down to the level of non-smoking. So basically what we're saying in short is smoking puts you at a higher risk of experiencing some level of cognitive decline compared to not smoking, what makes you basically at normal levels to not develop that cognitive decline. So there's a direct correlation between smoking and having more cognitive problems compared to those who do not smoke. So what are those tips that we want to talk about with being smoke free? What could help me stop smoking or stay smoke free? Is it nicotine patches? Is it going to groups? Is it quitting cold turkey? Is it doing another different activities or exercises? And then what resources are available near you to kind of help you be responsible and keep you accountable to make sure that is something that does not persist or continue on in your life? So, our 3 big tips: find support groups through quit lines, right? You want to make sure you talk to your doctor or another healthcare professional, and you want to look for a smoking cessation program or strategy that may work for you. Some people can quit cold turkey, some people need to be winged off, some people need some type of medicine. Whatever it is that you need to get you to the level to completely be smoke free, do that. So let's talk about taking care of your mental health. During COVID, just in general, right, we have seen the increase of Alzheimer's go up by at least 17 to 20% because people lack that human interaction. Plus, caregivers were being burnt out at a higher rate because they did not have the flexibility to move around freely, to take them to appointments or have self-care for themselves. So all of those things played into a larger role of how that affects our mental health. So you have to prioritize yourself and make time for self-care. So keeping it simple, you need to pay attention to your stress level and any symptoms of anxiety, depression, or other concerns. Those are direct correlations and affects the overall health of your brain. And any healthy habits that you're doing, eating healthy, walking, staying active, that contributes to good mental health. So let's break this down even further. Think about the things that you enjoy. Are you a seamstress? Do you like to sew? Do you like watching TV? Are you a video gamer? Do you like baking or cooking? What are the things that kind of bring you joy? And make sure you do more of that to help with your overall mental health. When you talk about working, if you are a caregiver, if you're just working a typical 9 to 5, building breaks into your day, right? So outside of your lunch break, that is mandatory, right? Finding 15-minute breathers or 10 minutes breathers to walk around and stretch, right? Just to not find yourself hunched over sitting at a computer desk for the entirety of your workday. Just finding those little things in between to give yourself a bit of a mental break. And then how do you make sure you dedicate and focus on self-care? By finding out the things that you like to do, making that a part of a regular routine. So let's look at the tips. Take a nap, go for a walk, have a dance break, sing a song, bake a treat, read a book, or watch a funny video. Whatever your thing is that brings you joy. And it can be the simplest of things, it can be the most complicated of things. Do that and do that in abundance. Do not feel like you have to push it, grind it out every time. It's a certain time where you got to clock out and give yourself that mental break and take that moment to say, you know what, I'm done for the day. And once you do that and you build that into your routine, you will feel better overall, but it will definitely help and improve your mental health. So get moving. So we talk about this a lot. Physical activity definitely improves your brain health. So let's break this down from a scientific standpoint. Anything consistent, especially talking about consistent cardiovascular activity, will reduce the risk of cognitive decline. So if you're running on the treadmill, you're taking a walk in the neighborhood, you're just moving, right? Making sure you're moving your body, building up a little bit of sweat, whatever that looks like for you, walking, running, jogging, biking, whatever that is. Just want to make sure you're building up that cardiovascular attributes in your body. Because again, what's good for the heart is good for the brain. Physical activity may directly benefit brain cells and reduce other risk factors. So again, being physical, always being moving, staying active, it will help reduce those factors or those underlying factors or causes we see with Alzheimer's and dementia. And for most people, any increase in movement can have an impact on your overall health. So again, if you're a sedentary person, you sit in the house, you eat potato chips, you don't do anything, taking that 15-minute walk, taking that 30-minute walk, building up gradually over time till you find a routine that makes sense for you. All of those things over time starts to building good, healthy habits, and you'll see positive changes and effects on your body. So when we think about getting moving, as we talked about at the beginning, there's never a wrong time to start. So figure out activities you want to do. Pickleball is a thing now that a lot of people like to play. So maybe you want to try that out. You want to start to build in activities more into your day. Like I said, if you're at work and you're at a desk all day, take a 15-minute break, maybe walk around the break room or walk around the building, come back. Just figure that out. And what I know to be true is that doing this, especially for the first time on your own, may be daunting. Find a buddy, a challenge partner, a co-worker, someone in the neighborhood that you can do, because you're more likely to do it if somebody's keeping you accountable or you know you're doing it with somebody than the motivation you may or may not have that day when it's raining or when it's cold to go out and walk or to run or to jog. So all of that plays a part into it as well. So let's look at some tips. You want to find the things that are already part of your day. Walk around your neighborhood, take the stairs more often, right? Or get off the bus stop earlier, right? You want to start small. A lot of times when people say, oh, I got to lose the weight, oh, I'm trying to be more physically active, you just dive in and then they get burned out because it's a lot to do, especially if you haven't done it and then your body's now adjusting to this aggressive, physical activity. So you always want to make sure you start small and build that up over time, right? And try something fun for you, and make it an activity where it's not just you doing it on your own, but maybe you have friends or family or neighbors joining you as well. So my favorite thing to talk about, eating healthy. Eating healthy overall and having a healthy diet will reduce your risk of many diseases, right? So that's something that I am working with and working on right now. And what does the science tell us about this? What's good for the heart is also good for the brain. Nutritious foods, the superfoods, those blueberries, or antioxidants, all those things that you see, omega 3s, all those things are good for the brain. It is brain fuel. And you want to make sure that by eating a balanced diet, it will reduce your risk of heart disease, cancer, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, stroke, and diabetes. So again, I'm a sweet guy. I grew up on cake and ice cream and cookies. I know that I cannot eat it or eat it in overabundance, so I have to do it in moderation. But making sure that it's balanced with some salads, with some greens, with some lean meats, some poultry, helps me out a lot instead of overindulging if like I need to have those things that are probably not as good for me. So let's talk about examples of a balanced nutrition. Well, we're talking about two diets that we work with and we have recommended that talks about cognitive decline. There's the DASH diet and there's the Mediterranean diet. So the key elements of both of these diets are lots of fruits and vegetables. We're talking about nuts, beans, and whole grains. And we're talking about lean meats, fish, and poultry, right? So we're talking about just changing everything a little bit and making it on the healthier side, right? We're limiting that salt and that sugar. We're looking at healthier fats where it's not a lot of carbohydrates and high cholesterol, leaner meats and cuts of meats and things of that nature. So again, just small, significant changes. We're not asking you to do it in 24 hours. We're asking you to slowly but surely add those greens, add that kale, add that spinach. Make sure your salad looks more colorful than it is with drenched in dressing, right? Change those subtle things up a little bit gradually over time, and you'll start to see a world of difference when it comes to your overall health. So when eating healthy, these are the things we want you to consider. How can I cook differently to make my meals healthier, right? Eliminate the margarine and the butter. Use olive oil when you cook on the stove, right? What healthy foods can I swap in? Subbing out those carbohydrates. So if I have a burger, instead of having a burger and fries, maybe I throw in a kale salad in there instead, right? Instead of having a soft drink or Pepsi, maybe make sure I drink more water. I have 100% juice. Just finding those alternatives over time and always be willing and open to trying new foods. I'll give you a perfect example. Uh, I can't eat white rice, right? It does not agree with me. I can do brown rice on occasions. I can do cauliflower rice, but because it's still rice, it's not as healthy. So the thing I had to try and wrap my head around is quinoa. Doesn't taste like anything. Probably not the thing I would say I would like as much, but to have that rice substitute when it comes for different dishes I make, I use quinoa instead. So just little subtle changes overall that makes you feel healthier and is ultimately better for you. So look at these tips that we just talked about. So I said it before, using olive oil instead of butter, right? Sodium-free spices and flavorings instead of salt. And you always want to make sure you can focus on what you can add in, making sure there's more fruits and vegetables on the plate instead of what you're taking away. A lot of times we get caught up in what is not there compared to what could be there, right? So we're never saying take everything out and replace it with this. We're saying substitute this for that. Make substitutions or changes where you can so that it becomes a part of your regular routine. Certain things, especially if there are old habits or stuff you've been doing for 10, 15 years, it's not going to happen tomorrow at a snap of a finger. It's going to take some patience. It's going to take some time. Your body's going to have to get used to not eating as much or eating certain things at all. So it takes time. You want to build meals around vegetables, beans, and whole grains and choose leaner cuts of meat. So a lot of times when we talk about that, we build it from the protein out, right? I'm going to have a big steak and then I'm going to have a side. Well, let's change that up. Let's have a leaner cut of meat, maybe something smaller than that, maybe a chicken cutlet, and then have a salad and then have this, right? So it completely changes the way we eat and how we then prepare our meals. If we focus out from the vegetables first and then proteins afterwards, instead of protein with meat and then vegetables in succession. So, just a public service announcement. There are a lot of things you see on TV, Pregnagen and some other stuff, or if I use olive oil, or if I use coconut oil, it helps. Think about vitamins and supplements and just in general, where you hear people have these quick schemes to help with overall memory and health. If it's not approved by the World Health Organization or FDA approved, we tell you you probably shouldn't try it. So the World Health Organization concluded in 2019 that vitamins and supplements should not be recommended to risk the reduce of cognitive decline in dementia. So there's a lot of stuff that say, well, we've been approved or it's been vetted, it's been fact checked. If it's not been fact checked from WHO, which said, hey, this is not the way to go when we talk about Alzheimer's and dementia, usually it's probably not what they're selling you, right? So you always want to be aware of potential false claims. You want to really focus on your nutrition instead of, pills and these other things that are not good for you unless it's prescribed to you by a primary care physician. And in doing anything, before you do anything, before you buy a product that you've seen on TV that's quote unquote been vetted, please, please, please talk to a healthcare professional about any concerns of nutritional deficiencies. Please do that. Challenging your brain may help lower your risk of cognitive decline. Absolutely. Continuing to challenge our minds as we age may lower the risk of cognitive decline. And it can be as simple as reading a book, reading the newspaper daily, Sudoku, anything like that. And we'll talk about that more right now. So you want to challenge your brain because it's going to have short-term and long-term benefits for your brain and overall cognitive health. So when we talk about cognitive engagement, what do we mean actually? Well, it is a term that means keeping our minds active and challenged. This could be learning a new skill, working on the challenging tasks, or engaging in ongoing learning. We're always learning. Doesn't matter how long you've been in school or out of school, you're always learning something new. You're always picking up a new vocabulary word, learning a fun fact. So we never stop learning. What we're saying here with cognitive engagement, what you're doing differently than being a world learner or avid learner or being a person just around it, is you're purposefully trying to learn and keeping your brain stimulated and active on purpose to make sure that the cognitive ability that you have does not decrease or diminish over time. So when we look at the science, this is what it tells us. Keeping your mind active forms new connections among the brain cells. That cognitive engagement encourages blood flow to the brain, and doing something that's mentally stimulating, especially activity-wise, right, may possibly maintain or improve your cognition. So all of those things are tied in. It keeps your brain active, it keeps the connection to the brain cells, it encourages blood flow to the brain, and whatever that is mentally stimulates you basically starves off or improves your cognition. And then when you engage in formal education, college, high school, books, anything that's like additional, maybe continuing education, it keeps your brain healthy and can provide protection against developing dementia. So when we talk about challenging yourself, what are the questions do you want to know? What are the questions you want to ask yourself? Well, what about learning a new hobby or skill? Like, do you want to learn how to be a better cook? Do you want to learn how to do things more technical with your hands, right? What does that look like for you? What activities sound like a fun challenge? Figure out what those things are for you and how you can do them, right? And then what topics would I want to learn more about? So if you are a world learner, do you want to learn about a country and then do research and maybe learn the language? So before you then learn the language, do the research, and you can travel to the country and then see what all the work you did to put into it and if it pays off. So tips to challenge yourself. Take a class at a local college or community center on a new topic or skill. You want to try a new technique and then learn a new language, right? These are things that are very challenging, that keeps that brain stimulated, keeps that brain flowing, and allows you to step outside of your comfort zone, right? Doing things with your hand is another way of being cognitive. So building a piece of furniture or learning how to play a new strategy game like chess. Whatever that keeps the brain thinking, that keeps the brain active, that keeps you to think about things and challenging yourself is good for you. Stay connected. Connecting with others socially can have many health benefits. So what do we mean by that? Well, let's do a deeper dive. This is what the science tells us. Staying socially active may support brain health. Social engagement is associated with living longer with fewer disabilities. Those who feel well connected tend to make healthier choices in other areas. So, I know for me, as we talked about people in our other sessions, that connectivity, whether you're being a caregiver or just that ability to be heard or felt heard, especially with someone with the disease, is very important, right? And if you can build that connection early, right, pre-disease or not, right, that connection and that bond never gets broken. And those people who have a social circle, who are participating in things at church or in the community, who are connected to others, tend to make healthy choices as well, because the influence of that spear hopefully is guiding you down the path where you're making those really good, healthy lifestyle choices. So in staying connected, how do I like to stay connected to others? Some people are phone people, some people are in-person people, some people are strictly virtual. Whatever is your way and best form of communication, you do that, right? Another way of staying connected is getting involved in your community, finding the local community center, maybe volunteering there, finding the local dementia friendly office and volunteering there, doing stuff at the Walk to End Alzheimer's and at the harbor, just finding things and ways just to be engaged and socially active. There's always something that you can do. People always need help, and you're the best person to help them. And then on top of that, in addition to that, are there any clubs or groups I want to join? Civic association, home association, fraternities and sororities, reading club, crochet club, book club, whatever you can think of to your heart's desire, there's something for you because there's an interest that you may have. So when we talk about those tips, volunteer for a cause that's important to you. You want to schedule regular phone calls and video chats and keep in touch. My best friend lives in California. I'll call him every 2 weeks just to check in, right? Just to make sure that that connection is still there and that make sure he's doing good. You want to make sure you visit family and friends, and you want to participate in any events in your community. So, as we are wrapping up, what's important to know about living healthy for your brain and body is that you can live healthy for your brain and body if you follow these steps. Number one, get quality sleep. Number two, be smoke free. Three, take care of your mental health. Four, get moving. Five, eat healthy. Six, challenge yourself. And seven, stay connected. And here's how we can help you in that journey. We have a 24/7 helpline, 800-272-3900. It is staffed by master technicians and clinicians who speak multiple languages. This can be helping you just overall generally about things to look out for as you age. This can help you directly if you have a loved one or someone going through Alzheimer's and dementia, tips and tricks of how to communicate effectively with them and things to watch out for, how to make sure that you're safe. As a caregiver, if you're taking on this responsibility, what resources and services are available for you and to you? They can discuss it just as much as we can discuss it as well. We have our online resources, which is alz.org, and then we have our community resource finder, which is in partnership with the AARP. And what that is basically we break down services by zip code in your area. So if you're looking for an adult daycare center or hospice care, if you're looking for healthy places to go to eat, anything you can think of, that community resource finder is there for you to give you those resources and services that you may need. So with that, I'll end my presentation.